This Fed Gov Today program is sponsored by Maximus. On this edition of Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose, the memo machine kicks into overdrive at OPM, the people piece of digital modernization, and the Navy kits up for innovation adoption. Welcome to Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose. Federal Chief Information Officer jobs across government will become political appointments, according to a memo from the Office of Personnel Management. It's one of almost a dozen transmittals from OPM this month alone. Jeff Pon is former director of OPM and former Chief Human Capital Officer at the Energy Department. Jenny Mattingley is Vice President of Governmental Affairs at the Partnership for Public Service and former Program Director in the Federal Workforce Branch at the Office of Management and Budget. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for joining me today. Jenny, I start with you. What of all of this work that's coming out from OPM are you advising managers, not necessarily HR people, but other managers across government to pay attention to?
That's a great question. There's a lot coming out, so a lot for them to think about. But I think right now what they need to pay attention to is their workforce. I mean, we're actually, at the Partnership for Public Service, we've been talking to managers about how do you stay resilient, because there's a lot of changes coming out with each of these memos and a lot of confusion because some of the policy memos that have been posted on by OPM change direction here and there. And so helping your workforce understand where to go to give information, that's really what they need to be focused on right now.
That navigation, Jeff, seems to be the most difficult thing for HR leaders, like your former colleagues and peers as Chicos, to navigate right now.
Correct, yeah. It's a two-way street. The administration is now cooking with gas with Elon and having like Silicon Valley speed, and they did it before, so it's a lot of the same crew that have come and learned, and now they're implementing 2.0. And a lot of the HR people are new in senior management. Many of the senior management has retired in the last 4 years, and now there's new people going on, and they're dealing with a barrage of personnel actions, and they're trying to make haste of what the management wants to do, be it political, but at the same time, it's their prerogative to manage the government.
You were at OPM for Trump 1.0. Is the
Yes.
speed at which they're moving now part of the challenge for that resilience piece that Jenny just talked about, because it's not something that people are used to?
I never thought that my office of the director would actually have cots in there, and they actually have cots. So they're sleeping day and night there, and they're trying to get stuff done. And it's a very different place that the administration is headed in this go-around, because it is literally 24/7, and it's not 9 to 5, it's not flex time, it's nothing like that. So even with snow days, I don't think anybody's actually staying at home now. They're working.
And by cots, you don't mean commercial off the shelf.
No.
You mean the actual physical cots.
GI ones that you snap in and they spread out, and they're in the office of the director right now, sleeping on those cots.
You used the term resilience earlier, Jenny. Are the techniques that one uses to build resilience in one's workforce the same under the current circumstances as they traditionally are, or is this really different all the way around?
I think it's a little different all the way around. The speed we just talked about, and I'm going to go back and say you can't say they're powered by gas, they're powered by EV at this point.
That's right. Well.
So, but you know, the speed with which the memos are coming out, the executive orders, is government doesn't pivot on a dime. You know, they're bringing sort of private sector, Silicon Valley type of the cots, the around the clock. There's a lot of reasons why government doesn't move as quickly. Not saying it shouldn't be reformed, it absolutely should be modernized. And you've got Congress, you've got all these rules and regulations. So I think that's what's keeping people sort of on their toes, trying to figure out how to navigate all of this.
Are the people that you're talking to, Jenny, talking and thinking about what this all looks like 6 months from now, or are they so focused on the flurry of activity that's happening now that they're not able to think that far ahead?
I think inside government, everybody's trying to figure out how to navigate what this new normal is. Outside of government, there are a lot of groups like the one I'm at that have been thinking about reform for 20 plus years, Jeff, you've worked on reforming government. I mean, there's been a lot of work that's gone into this. So I don't think that conversation has stopped. In fact, it's amped up to say, we know government is broken. There might be other ways to reform it that create a little more stability.
What is the potential opportunity that exists here that might be the flip side of the challenge, the difficulties that people, not just at the leadership level, but at the rank and file employee level, see today?
I think the biggest opportunity is for this administration to actually embrace technology. Getting out of the paper, making sure that all of our transactions from internal government and external government to the citizens are actually driven by technology, and I think this team actually brings that. Forget the paper, forget the personnel files, forget all of that stuff. Make sure that you're doing the mission of your organization at speed, and I think that that's a very welcome thing, because you can actually work together as a team and move at speed with digital technology. You don't have to be in the office. You can actually be virtual and do the things that you need to do as a team. And I think it's a very breath of fresh air that we have in the government, and we have this small space that we can actually get rid of all of the things that we used to do in the past and start anew.
I read that either coming or recently, the Doge team went to Boyers, Pennsylvania to go into the mine and see where the retirement forms are held. Are you optimistic, pessimistic, or neutral that there's an opportunity to finally make progress there along the lines of what you just described?
Yeah, well, they called me about why we have the mountain up there, but we still have 3 football fields worth of personnel files, and they're just not the personnel files, it's the whole entire employee history. So if you're a 35-year vet in the federal government, you don't have just your official personnel file, you have a stack of things, anything that you've done. You know, your personnel records, your ratings, transfers, development, and all that, it's in the mountain. We have digital ones of those things, but until 2003, we had all paper, and then we started digitizing things. So everything that goes to the mountain now are digitized, but you still have the physical files that are going up there. What's good news is going forward, we have digital files. We don't have the paper, but all of the people from 2003 before all have their paper up there. And you need to have that. Believe me, you need to have that. And I don't think this team of people understand why we need to have that. And it's a mountain of paper, 9 feet tall, 3 football fields, and all categorized. And the people there have worked that, the personnel files for generations, not just a 9-to-5 job.
Well, and one observer reminded me this week that all those people that work in Boyers are somebody's constituent on Capitol Hill, and that becomes part of the issue. At what point, Jenny, do you think this becomes a Doge and the Hill versus just what it appears to be now, which is Doge doing whatever it's going to do?
Yeah, Francis, I think we're already starting to see that. You're hearing members of Congress who are saying, not only do you have federal employees who are constituents, 80% of federal employees, give or take, live outside the DC metro area, but also the services. I mean, when you think about what feds do, I said to somebody the other day about the deferred retirement thing that's out there, I said, well, what if every, FAA air traffic controller took that? That impacts a whole bunch of the country, or Border Patrol, ICE. You start playing out National Park Service rangers. Things close. They're not here in DC. They're other places. And so part of the thing that I've been trying to remind folks about is there's a strategy that has to happen with some of this. You and I were talking earlier. What is it the government needs to do? And then how do you fund and staff that correctly? My fear is that with the speed that they're working, those strategic conversations aren't happening right now.
30 seconds, Jeff. Tomorrow morning, you're going to go back to the putting you back as a Chico again. You're going to go into the office. What are the 1, 2, 3 things that you're thinking about really hard as you get back to work tomorrow?
don't get rid of the admin people. They're getting rid of the admin people. They're the people that actually do the stuff, which is lay off people, get people the compensation and all those things. Number one. Number two is make sure that you explain what you do to the administration. Some people don't know what the mission is and how you plug in. It's all about mission, and the taxpayers are very fortunate that people are so dedicated as civil service people, dedicated to the mission, and I hope and pray that the civil service actually maintains and survives.
It's great to see you, Jeff. Thanks for joining me. Jenny, you as well. I appreciate both of you being here. You can read more about all the guidance coming from OPM on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the people piece of digital modernization. Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose. We'll be right back.
Our marketplace program and our IC marketplace program is a great example of where we now have the ability for the government to quickly access these companies and our SaaS providers to quickly utilize the Gen AI or other technologies versus having to go through the long procurement processes because it's already in place. So there are ways to do this and do it fast.
Welcome back. Industry and government leaders say the people piece is becoming the most important piece of digital modernization. Pamela Powers is Executive Managing Director for Defense at Maximus. She's former Chief of Staff to the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. She writes that, quote, successful modernization requires fostering a human-centered approach. At West 2025 in San Diego recently, I asked her why that's so important.
Department of Defense has typically looked at modernizing systems and not really modernizing the system based upon the person that's using it or the mission impacted by that system. And I think the department is starting to shift. The CIO recently came out with, I think it was last year, came out with a new strategy that focuses on user experience, but I think it needs to be broader than that. It's not just the user, it's also that mission impact. And I think it helps in a lot of ways. It makes it more intuitive. It creates a better process because you're designing it around the person that's going to use it. But it also shows you really where the pain points are in that process, right? And where you get the biggest bang for your improvement dollars. And then it has a better outcome in the end.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like that also forces organizations to figure out what their business processes are and see what they need to do to modernize the processes and not just the systems. Is that a fair read on my part?
Oh, for sure. And I think a lot of organizations focus on one process without looking at it as an ecosystem of processes, of technology, of tools that all interreact or interrelate to create that outcome, right? And so you can't necessarily just fix one of the processes. You can't necessarily fix, one of the systems. It all works together to create that experience or to create that mission outcome.
You mentioned the data analytics and AI adoption strategy that DoD put out recently. What's the connection among all of those pieces to what that user experience winds up looking like, how it functions for that user?
Sure. Well, data is really at the center of all of that. And treating data as a strategic asset and as a product really allows you to focus on the quality and the accessibility and the usability of that data. And I think that's so critical for the Department of Defense, and all the services are really focusing on that because there's so much, as technology improves, there's so much data, and harnessing that data in a quality way, in a way that can be used to create faster decisions, better information, I think is really a decision advantage for our warfighters.
One modernization concept that I know that was important to you, both in the Pentagon and at VA, was cultural transformation to kind of underpin the modernization and transformation strategy. What's that connection look like in your view?
Sure. Well, I mean, any modernization is difficult for an organization, especially one that's stretched as thin as the Department of Defense, right? And change management is incredibly important when modernizing or changing things in the department. Understanding how it's going to impact the organization at all levels, and really taking a human-centered design approach that understands what the pain points are going to be throughout that journey, is super important. And also it allows you to get buy-in from the users, from the customers that are going to be the recipients of that modernization. Without that change management and that human-centered design, it's hard for organizations to really embrace and accept and buy in and use it the way it should be designed, but also to give feedback along that journey, because as you're implementing these transformations, without that feedback of what's working, what's not working, what needs to be improved, it's not going to be designed effectively or efficiently.
Mm-hmm. You're on the other side now of the industry government equation. Sure. What's your sense now that you have done that about what each side of that equation's role is in delivering the kinds of transformations that you just described? What does industry bring to the table, and how is it a good partner with DoD and vice versa?
Well, it's got to be a partnership, right? Industry can bring solutions fast, can bring innovative solutions, but the warfighter knows what they need and when they need it and how they need it. And the organizations that industry serves really understand, all of the details, and industry doesn't necessarily understand. So it's a partnership, and I think industry can bring fast solutions and innovative solutions, but the government has to create frameworks that allow for that speed, right? Everybody here is talking about, I need technology fast, and I need it in a way that serves me and my warfighter. But industry can give that, but that framework has to be there to be able to accept it and be a constant evolution enablement.
Pam Powers of Maximus. You can read more about human-centered design on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the Navy kits up for innovation adoption. Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment.
I think the first thing that we're seeing is agencies and leaders determining how to balance speed and responsibility in adopting generative AI. And so as a part of that, they look at the way to leverage this technology in a secure cloud environment through accredited services, and to use models that they can rely on from a trust and safety standpoint and a reliability and performance standpoint.
Welcome back. The Navy's Program Executive Office Digital says its Innovation Adoption Kit, quote, contains frameworks, tools, and best practices to rapidly innovate and push the boundaries of current operations to deliver cutting-edge solutions into the hands of the warfighter. Justin Fanelli is Technical Director for PEO Digital and the Acting Navy Chief Technology Officer. At West 2025 recently, I asked him what the kit is and how the Navy uses it.
A lot of people talk about innovation in the government. We are at our best when we're converting, when we're executing. And so there's a lot of innovation happening in private sector. Our partners are amazing, and there are more of them than there have been before. Our job is convert and turn that into capability for the warfighter with our private sector partners. And so within the program executive offices and within the CTO team and extended community, we call it the community of innovation, we are trying to go from the strategy piece that folks talk about to the execution piece. And so after 25 pilots in about a year, 16-hour days for a year or so, we've proven out, hey, here is how we can go from idea to impact much faster. Here's how we can have measurable results. And so for that reason, we put together a playbook. We say we don't send warfighters into theater without a kit. Let's not send adopters into the Pentagon, into DoD without a kit. Let's kit them up. And so the Innovation Adoption Kit is meant to, at the program executive, at the acquisition level, how do we simplify and remove friction from, I have a good idea, let's unleash that into results. And so for that reason, we've shown how to matriculate from scouting someone to I'm turning something all the way off. And so structured piloting all the way through structured divestment, which feeds our cattle drive calculator.
You use the term converting, and it's interesting to me because DIU uses that same term, converting pilots to operationalizing something. Why is that an important term in the way that you think about how you drive innovation and turn it into something that's useful to the warfighter?
Yep, because we don't have to be creating, right? There's a lot of creation. We have to put steel on target. And so by saying, hey, there are people who are already solving problems. If we can direct them, if we can target them at here are operational users who we want to serve better. Here is a particular comms problem. So one of recent example that went through the IAK, the Innovation Adoption Kit, is we had sailors ashore who were having a much better computing experience and comms experience. We had sailors afloat on a ship, in this particular case, a carrier, who said, I want some of that. And so we converted, we shared within our Horizon 2 what was happening ashore with afloat folks. For that reason, they said, oh, we can scale this. This is better than what we have, or this is better than what we have and fills a gap that we don't have filled. And so we went from one ship that was leaning forward to multiple ships, and then we're looking at how to move that over. So the answer, why is it conversion? It's because it's just ideas and talk until it is serving our sailors and Marines.
What are the biggest obstacles that you've seen in that conversion process, broadly, not regarding any one particular application?
Yep. So in terms of friction in general, it comes down to a few categories. Historically, it's been, hey, is cyber a group of people who say no or yes if, where we can find the right cyber people and measure them and measure together how we can get that through the chute so we are secure. One example of that going better is there was a target for zero trust. The cyber community historically thought of as like a slow, sludgy group. We paired deliverers and cyber folks together, and the cyber folks were deliverers in that case, and we delivered our zero trust flank speed implementation 3 years ahead of deadline. So this is the government delivering 3 years ahead. So that's a case where there was an impediment, and we turned that into a pro. Others are just getting that first initial lock into government. And so we're pushing dual use tech. We're pushing companies that haven't worked with the government as much in the past. We don't want them to be experts in the ecosystem. We want them to be experts in the technology and where they can in our problems so that we can connect those dots faster. So rather than getting them a 101 on here's how to work with the government, let's make the government easier to work with. And so we've done a lot more SBIR awards and a lot more what we call OTAs. And so this is small business innovative research, just to get someone in the door, or the OTAs, other transactional agreements, so that we find vehicles that are not, hey, we love what you're doing. In 18 months, we'd love to formally talk with you. We're doing 3-month pilots in a lot of cases and saying either let's scale this or let's kill that. And so those are 2 points of friction that we think we've resolved. Another one is we have for a long time talked about in the government, there isn't an obvious equivalent between return on investment in industry and what we get for our money or our efforts in government. And so we've said, let's stop having the same tired conversation and turn this into outcomes. Mission outcomes are our return on investment. And some people get more for a dollar than others. And so what we've done is we've baselined and measured this. And we've said, hey, for every dollar into a pilot or into a sustainment activity, what is the mission outcome result? And for that reason, a lot of this is an alignment problem, just like with AI. Their alignment problems are a hot topic. So we've said, here are the world-class alignment metrics for our return on investment for one activity versus the other. If you are turning off multiple capabilities, so tech debt is a known problem, getting after it, turning off half of something but keeping the same bill is not helpful. And so using the outcome-driven metrics, using the WAMs, to turn these things all the way off and get rid of tech debt and replace the old with the better and faster. That's a third area that we're really trying to surge on, and we're ready to go faster.
I want to shift gears. The RAND Corporation recently put out an update or an overview of the Fix Our Computers response that all the services have undertaken. The Navy got some pretty good recognition from RAND on that. What have you done as you and your colleagues to respond to that challenge a couple of years back and really try to make that, you alluded to the experience a few minutes ago, to try to make that experience better for users across the service?
Our warfighters deserve to be doing what they signed up to do, not toiling with systems and IT in the background. That should be invisible. And so number one, we've prioritized real execution, and we've done some of that through, hey, what is your biggest pain point at Indo-PACOM? What is your biggest pain point on a ship or downrange? And so we've baselined that, just straightforward business type things. And then we've said, how much better can this be? In almost every case where we've surged in an area, 20% wasn't sufficient to make a change. We were going for 100% improvement. And so where we've tackled the biggest problems, we've actually just said, hey, here is a big problem. This is a technology that is dragging. It takes a lot of time to, in that particular report, it features like boot up time. And so we said, hey, we're going to dead center focus on boot up time. And we improved that by, and this just is more of a commentary on the baseline than where we went, but we improved that by 1,200%, right? Boot up time should not be something that any of our Marines or sailors think about. So we crushed that. It's not even an outcome-driven metric anymore. It's just something that's in the background. Same with how long does it take to get a computer? How long does it take to execute an activity? And so we've gone, what is our operational resilience? And so here's an example where we've allowed some things to be apples to apples. Instead of just saying, here's what our on-site network does, there are cases where we said, I think we can do that better with wireless, or I think we can do that better with proliferated low Earth orbits. Well, that's not how we buy this normally. We're about outcomes. We're not about hows. The hows are something that we can open the aperture on. Commercial is spending more money than we are in some of these cases. Let's allow that through. Let's convert that. And so that to say, where we can point up and scoreboard and show, here are the results we're delivering, and on the back end, here are the stories where a sailor said, and they have to us this week, and then pretty much every week since we started putting these into place, I'm having a better computing experience on ship and at work than I was at home, right? That's what you want. Like, that's what these folks who are giving this whole country service, this is the least we can do for them. And so to see those stories and to see our ability to scale some of that and a lot more coming, that's what this is all about.
You can read more about the Navy's Innovation Adoption Kit on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today continues in a moment.
What doesn't get talked about a lot too is also what is going to be the cost component to this. There's a lot of desire to leverage AI, right, without kind of understanding the implication of underlying processing capacity that's required. So not just the accuracy, but when you look at it longer term, what is going to be the cost of scaling this, and is the most effective way to do that?
FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10:30. I'm Francis Rose. I will see you then. Thanks very much for watching, and have a great week.